Hello YouTube, I'm Carl Fire, and behind me is my latest villager trading hall. I'm really excited about this design. It allows you to both remove the villagers to retire them or bring them to another hall or their own house, as well as zombify them right where they are. So it's a big improvement over my previous modification of Captain Wutax's design, whereas this one is completely its own thing. And I also want to thank all of you who pointed out that there were large flaws with that version that I put out, specifically with the villagers trying to find their new homes. They would run in and they would then have to turn a corner, and they were just having a large amount of problems with that. And the pillager system, where they were being scared by a pillager, here I have bells and workstations here. But the old version had pillagers, and that was causing issues. You can still use that with this new design if you like, but I'm not recommending it. Instead, I'm just having a workstation and a bell here, and they also don't have to make any corners. So in this version, the loading system, they'll just walk straight across here, and as soon as they go over their cell, they'll fall right in. So there's no messing around, they'll go straight in. They also will load left to right every single time, as long as they're adults, I suppose. But yeah, so they'll go through every single time, exactly like this, filling in their stations. This is fantastic. I've been using this new version in my latest survival base, and I've been having a great time. Oh, here's a perfect example of the zombification. I forgot to close this off, so now this guy is going to be ready to be cured. Let's get rid of him. So here you can see we have the ability to get rid of those guys. And also, if we right-click on a note block here, then this block gets pulled back, and as soon as a zombie path finds to behind one of these guys here, then he'll be able to see them and go ahead and zombify them. I have two name tagged zombies. They both have sharpness swords. I find that 2 works well because they'll push each other back and forth. That's a very useful thing to have as well. So they won't see someone, like if I open up this one over here, they're not going to see him until they actually pathfind to where he is. But oh, that happened really quickly. There we go, perfect. And so then we'd be able to close up that block again, throw in our splash potions of weakness, and cure them to get those great trades that are so important. Another thing that a viewer pointed out is that these lamps that I had in the old version, they really worked very backwards. So now they will actually turn on when there's a villager in the cell as opposed to the other way around. Yeah, so this one has lots of functionality. I'm really pleased with it. However, it's very expensive. So the big downside to this is obviously the expense. If you have a witch farm and you're bartering with piglins, you can definitely afford to have 13 observers for one villager, but maybe you don't want to do that if you don't have to. So I've built up a second version over here, which has the same functionality with the zombies in the back, but instead of using redstone to open these, we just have the player manually opening these trapdoors. This is totally fine. You can reach behind these guys, but the issue here is that you can potentially try and click on a villager and instead zombify them. So if we had some villagers in here, we could fairly easily try and click on one of these guys, and if there was a zombie here, this guy would get murdered, and then we'd need to spend our gold on curing him and brewing potions and stuff like that. So if you're careful, this one's a cheaper version. However, this one here, there's no chance of you accidentally kind of clicking on the note blocks here when you're trying to open a villager's trade all the way over here. So that one is way more expensive, but it's definitely a little bit safer. The other improvement that I just remembered about the Captain Wutax version is that these guys here, there's no string in their chest, so you will always click on them. That was a big pet peeve I had with the old version, where you'd try and click like this, and instead of clicking on the villager, you would actually just click on a piece of string and nothing would happen. You had to actually click on their face. Another important thing here is that you won't get gossip from these guys unless you do this. But gossip isn't super important in a hall like this because we're going to be zombifying them and getting our discounts that way. So yeah, they can't see each other, but it's not a big deal. It really doesn't affect much here because they don't really need to gossip with each other. You can make them gossip if you like. That's totally doable just by doing this. Just make sure you're not going to be zombifying any of the ones on either side here. So let's go through the redstone really quick, and then afterwards I'll show you how you can modify this new loading system with the Captain Wu-Tax version. So let's start with the simplest one because it's the easiest to sort of understand. Here we have the villagers. They come in here and their head is going to be in this string. Because they're standing on a carpet, that will be detected, and this observer will make this sticky piston spit out a full cauldron. And that will determine whether or not that trapdoor there is open or closed. Now, we do need to have a slab above here. It can't just be a solid block because the villagers need to be able to walk on top of these trapdoors to get to the next cell. That's important. And if it's open, they'll fall through, and if it's closed, obviously, they won't. And that is really the simplest thing, is just moving this one up higher than it was before, and having the villagers just walk in a straight line. It's such a big improvement over the previous way of doing it. So let's bring in a villager here. The other option that we have to add on here also is, of course, the lamp, and that's using the same cauldron. It's just using the redstone here to come up into a target block. Now, if you don't want to use a target block, you can also use a solid block with a piece of redstone on top of it. That will still work just perfectly fine. Your cauldron does need to be full for this to work, by the way. So that is the top circuit there. Then underneath here, what we're doing is we need to have a zombie back here, and we need to give him the ability to move back and forth. And the previous version had these extended, whereas now we are going to have them pull these back and then spit out their carpets really quickly like that. It's important that we have this fence gate underneath here so that the zombie doesn't get pushed into this gap and fall down as well. And that will also happen if your zombie mode is turned on when you try and get rid of a villager, like this. If that happens, just go ahead and punch this guy and he'll jump back down. If you don't punch him, then this is what's going to happen the next time you do this. Bye-bye! So just make sure that you're not trying to zombify a guy when you're also getting rid of him. It's pretty easy because you probably would never actually want to do that. You might notice there's two different versions here. This one, they're standing on a wall. I find that sometimes the zombies have a really hard time pathfinding on the wall, so this is the version that I would recommend building here. This version here is slightly different because we need to push this block back and forth with redstone. You do that by right-clicking this note block here, and that is what's going to allow the zombie to see the villager or not. We're just sending this down through here, and of course we're using a piston to bridge this gap because we still need the villagers to be able to fall through that gap. So it's coming through here around the back and then powering this piston really quickly and sending it back and forth. We also need to power these two pistons differently than in this version because we can't have them interfering, so we're doing it this way here. And I'm doing that with just alternating these ones here with, we got powered rail, activator rail, powered rail, activator rail. And that's just because if you use all powered rails, it won't work. Then up here, we also have another issue with tiling. You can use repeaters like this all the way across, or you can alternate repeater redstone dust, and that will just be a slightly cheaper way of doing this. You'll save a couple bits of redstone that way. So yeah, these are the two different versions. They're both exactly the same up here. It's just the redstone functionality underneath, which allows for slightly different use cases. Now, this one obviously here, a little bit cheaper to build than this one, but like I said, if you have some pretty crazy farms, you can build some pretty crazy villager breeders. So let me just really quickly point you out to some interesting things in this world. This gold arrow here is pointing to the old version of the villager trading hall. So if you've built up my villager trading hall, this is what you have built up. And you probably have villagers who are standing on this block here. Now you can go ahead and just push in these trapdoors here with some pistons, breaking the string that's there, and then replace the loading system with one of these versions up here. So this is what you want it to look like if you want to modify the loading system to work with this new, simpler, straightforward loading system. It's this one right here in the world download. So if you guys want to try out anything in this world for yourself, if you want to build one of these, the best way to do it is with the world download. If you're having issues, I don't mind sending you screenshots, or if you have problems, feel free to send me a link to a screenshot there, and I have no problem at all checking that out and seeing what's what. So let me know what you guys think about this design. I would love to see if anyone builds these up, especially this big crazy version. That would be really awesome. So yeah, so thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers, folks.